Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And you know, we would love to hear from you. All you need to do is email us at jimandjoy@ewtn.com. We would love to hear from you during the show. Today, we have a wonderful guest who's come all the way from Rome to be with us. Yes, it's Joan Lewis, the EWTN Rome Bureau Chief, and she is here today, not just on the screen as you see her when she gives us all the beautiful shots that she gives us from Rome and tell us all the beautiful stories. Today she's here right in the flesh and blood. We're going to get to see her and be with her.
It was great just to chat with her in the back room, and she was sharing some precious stories that I've never heard before about popes, about activity there in Rome, and just so meaningful. Made me think, you know, in 2002, I guess it was, where we made a pilgrimage to Rome. And we didn't know we were really making a pilgrimage. We having inklings I should come back to the church. I was a lapsed Catholic, Episcopal priest. Somehow we got a trip to Rome and made our way there in December of 2002, right around the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And it was just incredible. As we flew there and as we got there, then I knew it was a pilgrimage, not just a visit. Something holy, something special, something consecrated to God, and that it's a holy place. And when we finally made it there, one of the first places we visited late in the afternoon was St. Paul's outside the walls. And so it was late in the evening. It was one of the first things that we did. And when we got there, they were closing it down. There wasn't a person in the place, but somebody that was caring for the facility. We saw him and said, you know, can we go into this basilica? St. Paul's outside the walls. And it's just beautiful. I mean, I love the way that looks, and the large columns, and it looks like palm trees or something out there. It's just gorgeous. But it was really dusk. And so he said, yeah, we can go in. And I could remember hearing my shoes click on the marble and the columns that were inside. And again, you know, I was having this inkling, you know, I should come back to the church. And this is the beginning of our pilgrimage. And I said to him, what's that light down there? All the way down, you know, and there's an altar and there's a votive light. And he said, those are the remains of St. Paul. And I was like, wow. And I just walked slowly. You weren't with me at the time. You know, you just let me have my walk, I guess. Click, click, click. And went up to the altar area, and there's the votive light, and his remains are either right there or below. Joan will set us straight on all of it. But I remember kneeling down, you know, I'm just kind of thinking, you know, what should I do, Lord? I was in the Catholic Church, I left, became an Episcopal priest. Now I'm kind of finding out more about the church that I left, that I didn't know. I remember kneeling there and saying, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I live by faith in the Son of God who died for me and rose again. Those are the words of St. Paul, and I'm saying, he's here. And I'm just saying, my gosh, I've always preached that word, tried to live that word. He's here. And it began to really stir in me, you know, that, hey, you're Italian. Like Peter and Paul, you know, these guys from Jerusalem came over here, you know, you're Italiano, and the gospel went out to the whole world. And then the other thing I was thinking, you know, we minister so much among the poor, and it was so beautiful. So much in Rome is beautiful. And I was thinking, is all this right? I mean, this wealth and everything that's here. And I felt like St. Paul said to me, but we were fools. We were fools for Christ's sake. And this is what I felt. I mean, and I felt like he said, yeah, it's okay. This is all right, because it shows the beauty, it shows the victory, but it's built on our bones.
Yes.
It's built on shed blood, martyr's blood. Anyway, that was the beginning of the pilgrimage. We would come home from that time after 10 days, and I would say to my Episcopal bishop, I must bend my knee to the Pope of Rome. I want to. And from there on, you know, we came in. But making a pilgrimage to Rome can change your life. And that's what Bishop Baker says in the book, A Holy Year in Rome from Joan Lewis.
Yeah.
And he starts out saying, if you go to Rome, it could transform your life.
Well, and as for me, my quick little snapshot, when I went to Rome, I had no idea the pilgrimage that I was going on, because I was very happy as an Episcopal priest wife, but Jesus was calling me to deeper waters. And my whole life changed. I mean, I walked into St. Peter's and I didn't know all the things that were going on because a lot was going on emotionally and spiritually. And I walked in and I began to weep and I could not stop crying. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And I knew that when we boarded that plane and went back to Birmingham, Alabama, the life that I knew there was never going to be the same because Jesus was calling us to more. And that's what every pilgrimage is about. Every pilgrimage is about journeying with Jesus and then obeying him and saying yes to him again and again and again, no matter how long you're walking with the Lord or no matter what denomination you're in with him. He's always after truth and authority and obedience, and that's been our journey. So we're excited about having Joan Lewis with us today, the EWTN Rome Bureau Chief. She's right here live on At Home with Jim and Joy. Don't go away because you want to see Joan. Welcome back. Well, you're an important part of our EWTN family, and we would love to hear from you. If you have a question for our Rome Bureau Chief, Joan Lewis, give us a jingle right here during this live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460 outside of North America. You can reach us at area code 205-271-2980, or you can just send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and hopefully we will use your question right here on the air. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Joan Lewis.
I'm Joan, and I'm with you at home.
Yeah,
I love it.
Awesome.
Finally.
I
That
love
is
when
so
you do
perfect.
that
Exactly.
on your spots. I'm Joan, and this is my Rome. I love your face. I do.
Oh, I do too,
You're
you know?
so full of life and of the spirit. It's a great face, and people love your spots on our show. They want to know if you're going to be a regular person on the show, and we tell them, yeah, she's on
she's
there.
I
here
am
all the
regular.
You
time.
add so much to
exactly.
what we do here at home, Joan. So
But I
thank
think I
you.
have to change my name because when people see me in Rome, it's, oh my gosh, it's Joan's Rome.
Instead of Joan Lewis. But
Joan for me, that's
could
okay.
be Joan Rome. That's
That
good.
is okay. And it should be that way. I mean, that's my blog, it's my videos, it's who I am. You know, I'm Joan, and I report to you from my Rome.
Well, beautiful Joan, who came all the way from Rome. Why don't you tell our family at home about you? Where were you born and raised? Did you just appear in Rome? How did you get there? You know, tell us a little bit about the personal side of beautiful Joan.
Well, I was born and raised in Oak Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, into a very Catholic family. So the church has been my entire life. I mean, when I think of praying, I think of my mom kneeling with me at night next to my bed when I'd be 3, 4, or 5 years old. Going to Catholic schools, Sunday Mass was just a natural part of my life. And a very beautiful part of my life. I don't ever remember, maybe there was a day, I don't ever remember not wanting to go to Mass. Even if I was tired or something, there was just something beautiful about our family going to church together, the rituals after church. But there was one unusual thing about my life, and I just saw this paper a few days ago in my office in Rome. For some reason, when I was growing up, you had to fast from midnight, from food, from water, anything else. And I had in churches on a Sunday only a few fainting spells as a very young thing. So the doctors said I should not fast from midnight on. Well, our pastor had to go to the Archdiocese of Chicago, who had to write, and they had to write to Rome. And I still have, I found it the other day, I have the document in Latin that says that I do not have to fast.
That this little Joan can eat.
That little Joan can eat.
Eat
The
and
rest of the
drink.
world couldn't, so eat your heart out, you know.
That is so
But,
beautiful.
Were you around a lot of families that had that same
Yeah.
commitment to
Oh,
the
yeah.
faith?
I mean, it was just so natural for me to go to church, to go to a Catholic school, to pray, to say the Rosary as a family. You know, in the month of May. Oh my gosh, in May, in our house, the bedrooms were on the second floor, and we had a great big hallway off of which, or square area off of which the bedrooms were. And in May, we kids built an altar to Mary. We used an absolutely beautiful porcelain bust that my mother had of Mary for that altar. But we would get crates that grapefruit would come in from Florida when our grandmother sent grapefruit. And then we'd find blue material. And either from our mother's garden or our neighbor's garden, we didn't tell him we did this, but we would cut lilacs and have big floral arrangements. So May was Mary's month. It was the Rosary. October was the month of the Rosary. Volunteering, this is what Mom and Dad did. I just assumed that was part of anyone's natural life, you know, growing up.
So when you went off to college, what was your major?
My major was French. My minor was political science. I had kind of thought of the diplomatic corps. I was very interested in that. I loved languages. I loved geography. Traveling, I hadn't done that much of until my junior year in college. That's when everything changed. And as you said, I got to Rome, and that was it during that year. But we were there almost 12 months. We took the ship over to, I studied in Switzerland. We took the ship to Europe over. We took the ship back at the end of those 12 months. We did a lot of traveling, probably 10 or so countries in that time. And it was like I loved every country, but I fell in love with Italy. And I can remember standing at a certain fountain in March of the year we were there with twin cousins and 2 other friends and saying, I have to come back here and live here and work here and die here.
Wow.
Don't know why I threw that in, but, but I did, yeah.
So you were bringing groups to Rome, young
Yes,
people.
because I ended up teaching French for a lot of years. So in that time, I brought student groups to study. Sometimes it was French. It was always a 6-week program in the summer. Sometimes it was for the French majors, so 3 weeks in a big city like Paris and 3 weeks in a small French or Swiss university town. Other times our trips were to study comparative cultures. So we'd be 6 weeks in 5 European capitals, London, Paris, Vienna, Rome, etc. And so I just always tried to kind of pick up a little bit of Italian for the day when I would realize my dream and get back to Rome.
How did the official connection begin to be made between you and the Vatican? I mean, what led to that?
When I got back to Rome, I wanted to get back to Rome so badly, but I didn't want to like just sell shoes to be living in Rome. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And as the Lord, I guess, certainly would have it, I ended up working for a year on the sophomore year abroad program of my alma mater, St. Mary's of Notre Dame. And so, but during that year, I got to know the city. I mean, I knew I was going to be there for a year. So afterwards, it was like, who can I meet? What can I do to stay here? Because you have to have your police permit to work. You have to have all those papers to make life, legal. And as the Lord would have it again, during the canonization of Elizabeth Seton in September of 1975, I met 2 people who changed my life. I was helping priest, Father Joseph Dervin, who had written the official biography of Elizabeth Seton. Wow. And he was coming to Rome for a month before the canonization. And he was going to have an office for VIPs and Americans who were coming, for the canonization. And in the time he was there, and I was his secretary in organizing receptions and things, in the time he was there, I met Al Schuster, who was the new bureau chief of the New York Times, and I also met Cardinal John Wright. He was the first American cardinal to head a big office, a congregation in the Vatican. And his secretary at the time was one Father Don Worrell, now Cardinal Worrell of Washington, of course. And so I became, I was asked to be the cardinal's secretary on weekends. And his unofficial, because Father Worrell was his Vatican secretary. So I did that on weekends, and Al Schuster asked me to join the New York Times as a researcher and translator. Yeah. So that's how I just realized I'd always loved to write, but to actually make a living out of it. And so I was with the New York Times for a couple of years, and then in an economic crisis when all of the media, TV, newspapers, and everything, when they were downsizing, I was one to be downsized from the Times, but I didn't want to leave journalism. The church was my life, so I ended up deciding to be a freelance journalist covering the Vatican.
Okay.
With Al, I had met so many Vatican leaders. I was learning a lot about the church. That seemed the natural field.
Wow.
So one thing led to another. I did freelancing, and then I was asked to work for the National Catholic Register as their bureau chief.
Okay.
So look at that cycle.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
You know,
That is so
and now
beautiful.
the register is part of this family.
Now, you served as a delegate, didn't you, for the Vatican to the UN?
Yes, as on to 4 United Nations conferences. So the years that I was working for the Vatican, when they were setting up an office founded by John Paul in 1989 called the Vatican Information Service, they were looking for someone who had English mother tongue, who knew the church, who also had at least 3 languages, and who was a practicing Catholic. So my name came up from all the people who knew me as having covered the Vatican as a freelance.
A job tailor-made
So
for you.
there we are. And the funny thing is, when I did leave Rome for a few years to come back to America, when I did leave, one of the persons that I proposed as my successor for the register was Greg Burke.
Oh, okay.
Greg Burke is now our friend from St. Louis, who is the new director of the Holy See Press Office.
Wow, that's powerful.
So,
Your relationship with EWTN, when did that begin? How did it begin? And then you were folded into this great network.
Oh,
when did
sure.
you start working with EWTN?
Well,
Not officially, but they knew you were there and you
exactly. In around the time of the 2000 Jubilee, or maybe a little bit before, I had written a small volume on that Jubilee 2000 in Rome, and incorporated a lot of what I learned through my job at the Vatican. And it was in those years that I went to delegations to China, to Istanbul, to Cairo, and Copenhagen. So those were very heady, wonderful, enormous experiences. But anyway, when I had written this little book, and EWTN, we were in touch. I think we had met, it might have been Raymond Arroyo. I know I met EWTN people at the UN conference in Beijing on women in 1995. And you're exchanging cards, you don't know if you're going to use somebody's card, and all of a sudden one day I was contacted, and could I get some information? I've forgotten what it was right now, but I was the person in the Vatican that they would come to if they needed background on the Pope's trip or on a papal document. So, and then when it came time for the Jubilee, we took my very small book at the time, and we did, I don't know how many, but Raymond came to Rome, we filmed what we call Jubilee moments. Kind of like my Joan's Rome today,
Right.
you know, but bringing people to specific spots associated with the Jubilee. And so then we did that for a lot of years, and I was always in touch with them. And when John Paul died, and I was involved in that conclave coverage, of course, his funeral and that amazing conclave. And the fun part about that, I was working at the Vatican at the time, so I had my job in the morning. We finished about 3 in the afternoon sometimes. And then I'd be on the set at 7 for the live show. And what I did during the day, for example, we didn't have a lot, we had a lot of the technology we have today, but when it came to translating things, anything that had to be done in English was given to Joan to translate, because I was the only English language mother tongue person in the Holy See Press Office who could do this. So like it was Pope John Paul's last will and testament. And I sat there and I would type out the whole translation, and that's what was given at lunchtime or what to the media. So I am proud to say anything that came out during the 2005 conclave in English came from my computer.
Well, they must
That's
have really
amazing.
seen you as a
All the-
trustworthy servant to do that.
And all the medical bulletins, because we had acquired early on when John Paul, I think it was 96, had some serious surgery. And I said, okay, if you want bulletins, and I'm to translate them, because they were all like pure medical, like from doctor to doctor.
It's like Ishkabibble to you.
Well,
It's like,
well,
what
yeah,
is
but it
that?
had to be to the public. You
Sure,
can't use all the
right,
medical
right.
terms. So we got a wonderful medical dictionary, and anything I had to put together about his health, I had to read back to myself. If I'm out there in the public and don't know anything, does this make sense?
Right.
So I did a lot of those bulletins and everything else,
That's
you know.
amazing.
And then when I retired from the Vatican in June of 2005, faster than you could say I don't want to retire, EWTN said, you know, Mother Angelica's wanted an office in Rome since 1978. I think if you'd like to join us as our bureau chief, well,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you said, I don't want to
y-
retire.
y-
I still got more to say.
Well, that's it. Retire for me means go to bed. It doesn't mean stop working.
So you have an actual facility place. Where is that?
Well, here's what may have happened. During the conclave, I had Father Richard John and Raymond and a couple of others to my house one night. And I'd only moved into this apartment across from St. Peter's. I'd only moved in like 2 months earlier. So a lot of rooms had to be decorated and drapes put up and everything. But I said to them off the cuff, mind you, I'm still working for the Vatican. I said to them off the cuff, now, if EWTN ever, as I'm showing them around the house, the back of my apartment has 3 bedrooms. So my room, I turned one into an office
Nice.
and then a guest room. But I brought them to this very empty room, except for a lot of books on a shelf, and said, if EWTN ever opens an office, here you go, you know. And the next thing you know, a couple of months later,
Wow.
that was the proposal.
You were being
So-
more prophetic than you knew.
So who would know exactly?
Well, you mentioned that you wrote a book for the Jubilee 2000.
Yeah,
And you've got this book recently written, A Holy Year in Rome.
yeah.
And was that a helpful thing to write something in 2000?
Oh, sure.
And then
Because
go
what
into
I
this?
used in this book, then, a lot of the research that I did, of the chapter where I bring you to the 7 pilgrim basilicas. I reread the entire book. I could see where I had to make additions, upgrades, whatever. Most of the descriptions of the churches hadn't changed, but St. Peter's had. Because in 2000, we had John Paul as our Pope. And when I'm writing this book, we have now St. John Paul buried in St. Peter's. So a couple of things had to be adjusted. But then I had to talk about the Holy Year, about Pope Francis, his announcement of the Holy Year, why the Holy Year, and then where did I want to go with a lot of those
You've had
topics.
so many wonderful endorsements. I guess you spent a lot of time in Rome. You met a lot of people beyond
yes.
Rome. And you've got here Reno Fisichella, the president of the Pontifical Council for the Promotion of the New Evangelization. You got Cardinal Dolan,
Yeah.
Cardinal Wuerl,
Sure.
Teresa Tomeo on here, and a beautiful introduction there by Bishop Baker, who started with that first line, which I used at the beginning there. You know, if you're going to
Yes.
go to Rome, your life could be transformed. So just know that. It's great.
I
So a
have to
lot of
t-
people
When I asked him
recommending.
to write that, and he sent it back to me, I literally had tears in my eyes as I read it.
It was beautiful.
Because I know him, and that just added something of his beautiful spirituality, his great humility, his love for the church, his love for Rome. He wove this tapestry and said it all in that foreword. Very, very beautiful.
So what, obviously, a holy year in Rome, the Jubilee of Mercy. This is a special Jubilee year, right?
Yeah.
So you knew this was coming up and you just,
It's an extraordinary Jubilee
Extraordinary.
year in the sense of there have been 26 ordinary Jubilees that began in the year 1300. And first they were going to be every 100 years. And then the popes realized that there would be generations who would never see a holy year. That was too much time. Then they made it 50, and it finally became every 25 years for an ordinary. Then Popes John Paul had, for example, several extraordinary, honoring, for example, the 1983, the 1950th anniversary of the resurrection of the risen Christ. He had a Marian year. So the one declared by Pope Francis is in the category of extraordinary year. And I don't think it surprised anybody that he chose mercy, because he was elected on a Wednesday. That following Sunday, his first homily in St. Anne's little church in the Vatican, one of the parish churches, his first homily and Angelus was all about mercy. And it was about our loving God. Never forget that he loves you. Never forget he loves you to the point he will forgive you. We just have to remember to ask for forgiveness, ask for his mercy. And that is the one theme that we all know has dominated his papacy.
Well, let's just take a pause at this point. We're here with precious Joan Lewis, our bureau chief there for EWTN. You know her well. You can call into the show. You can email us. She's speaking about a holy year in Rome and much, much more. We'll be right back. Don't you go away.
Welcome back. Well, remember, we want you to be a part of our show right here on At Home with Jim and Joy. If you have a question for Joan, give us a jingle during this live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. Outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980. You can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and hopefully we will use your question right here on the air. Now, don't forget to mark your calendars for this coming weekend. What are you doing this weekend? It's September 17th and 18th. We want you to come on down to Birmingham, Alabama for the EWTN Family Celebration. Joan's here from Rome. We have people in our audience from Texas and New Jersey and also Canada, so they've come. So help us celebrate the life and the legacy of Mother Angelica. All your EWTN favorites will be there. Your kids can have fun with the Donut Man, and you can shop at the great special religious catalog that will be there for all the holy reminders that you need. Mass will be celebrated both days, as well as opportunities for adoration, prayer, and confessions. Well, the best part about our family celebration is free. That's the operative word, free. You can get all the information for this on this year's EWTN Family Celebration by going to EWTN.com, clicking on the Family Celebration link. Don't forget, it's the EWTN Family Celebration this coming weekend. If you haven't finalized your plans for the weekend, come on down to Birmingham, Alabama, Saturday and Sunday, September 17th and 18th. We would love to see you.
Yeah, this is the second gathering, you know, when Mother Angelica passed away. A number of us were together, but I think we're going to have such a larger group this time. It's just something about being together since her passing, to celebrate her life, the legacy, maybe a little grief together. Maybe people can go up to Hansville and visit her resting place. This is a very special family celebration. Please don't miss it. Joan, let's delve more fully into a holy year in Rome. You spent so many years in Rome. You know so much, so many people. How did you decide on the content for this book?
Well, basically, again, kind of going back to the first volume, I knew what a pilgrim would have to know. Okay. And one of the things I had decided in my first book, and it turns out to almost be the highlight of of this book, is I decided to give the history of Jubilees. We should not just they began in 1300, and there have been a few of them ever since, but during a Jubilee, you had hospitals that were built, bridges that were built, buildings, places that still stand today, statues, whatever, to commemorate an event. And so that is an important part of the history, to know that this or that church, chapel, building was built for a specific Jubilee. And I'm getting a lot of emails. People love that because they get a lot more about the history of Rome. And then I place Jubilees within a context. So the Jubilee of, 1575 was within this historical context in Europe, and years, very few, in which there were no Jubilees.
We hear often about Castel Gandolfo, And you know, it's a name, but you know, you went through some of the history of that. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about the history and what that is
Oh,
for
it's
the
a
popes.
beautiful, beautiful place. Castel Gandolfo is about, it's a little bit bigger than Vatican City in Rome. Vatican City in Rome is 108.7 acres, the size of an 18-hole golf course, I'm told. And Castel Gandolfo is just a little bit bigger. It has a working farm on it. And so you have butter, you have eggs, you have yogurt, you have olive oil made on that farm. That comes to Rome. That's where the popes, until Francis, used to spend their summers, at 1.5 to 2 months. John Paul loved it. Benedict loves Castel Gandolfo. And Pope Francis has already told us a number of times he doesn't like to take, he doesn't know how to take a vacation. We in Rome think he should. Just anybody, us and our audience, they know what just being away from your home, your work in a new environment, it can reinvigorate you. So,
Italians know how to take vacations.
Yeah, they do.
And to be on pause, right?
Oh.
There's a certain time during the day. It's
Yeah, I
like
tell
when we were there, you know, it was like everything was kind of shut down and
I said,
closed
I'll
down.
just run to the
I guess it was
market.
like 1, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then they eat late. The Italians, right?
And
it's later
they
in
used
the
to
day.
close from like 1 to 4.
That's what it
yes.
is. Okay.
And then, because it was a long lunch, they really know how to entertain at the dining table or in a restaurant. So a long lunch, maybe a little nap, you know, and then you begin reinvigorated. At 4 o'clock, you go back to your store or whatever you have to do. So they do know how to. But I brought Castel Gandolfo into the book. So I look at that. I look at the catacombs, a chapter on that, and then also one on Vatican City, because all of these are places that the pilgrim, the visitor, can go to. The Vatican now has this wonderful thing on Saturdays, and I explain how to do it in the book very clearly, where in the morning you start out at the Vatican museums.
Yeah.
Then you go into the Vatican Gardens, see a little bit of Vatican City, which is exquisitely beautiful. Then you're brought to the train station in Vatican City, board a train that takes you to Castel Gandolfo. Then you get a little minibus that brings you up to the Papal Palace. You see some of the rooms there, and then you see the gardens, which are exquisite. Beautiful. And so I tell people about that because they can actually go there. And they can tour Vatican City, the gardens, in addition to the museums, and they can tour the catacombs.
We never made, okay, baby.
Well, I was just going to say, what about the Vatican store? They had a store. You did a spot on that, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You've been in the store.
The building that in 1931 was this very ornate, very small but ornate train station has become, with the disuse of trains, except for the ones I mentioned now, with trains no longer being used to transport popes in general, they transformed that into a very elegant department store. So the building itself, the marble floors, the wrought iron staircases, that has remained. But it really is an upscale. It's kind of like going to, you know, shop at Prada. It's all the name brands that most of us on Vatican salaries really couldn't afford, but except for their electronics.
Oh, you mean the things that the people are trying to sell out on the street? Are they Prada too? And that's what they say they are.
Not really. And Benedict never wore Prada. Let's settle that once and for all. His red shoes, he loved red. He loved to follow in that tradition. John Paul didn't. The reddest he ever got was maybe burgundy. Francis loves his comfortable Argentinian-made black shoes. But Benedict was a fashion plate, and his red shoes were not Prada. I know the man who made his shoes, and it's where I get shoe work done. So he's from Peru, and you should see the big roll of the red, you know, what he used to make the shoes, the red patent leather.
Where does Pope Benedict stay? Pope Emeritus?
It's so beautiful. There's a building that was for many, many years under John Paul, a monastery that housed an order, different orders over the years of nuns who did nothing but pray, cloistered orders, who did nothing but pray for the church and for the Pope. And then that house became Benedict's. So he and his secretary, Archbishop Ganswein, and 4 consecrated women who lived there. And I have to say, I was very privileged. We don't have time today for the story, but I have a very beautiful chalice in my home that my grandparents gave to a young man And he died, became a priest, died young. The chalice came back to my family. I now have it, and it's going to go someday to a seminarian from Chicago, because that's where it began. The chalice was given to this young man on April 16th, 1927, which is the very day Joseph Ratzinger, Benedict, was born.
Oh, wow.
So when I saw the chalice, had it in my hands, I wondered if he could say Mass with it. So when I give it to this seminarian, I have this great story.
It's a great story.
Not as Pope, but in his chapel, and I was invited. He said Mass with this, and I have a beautiful documentation to attest to it. Benedict said Mass with this chalice in his chapel, and afterwards we had a beautiful conversation. He knew the whole story. I had written it out for him about the chapel, and he asked about Mother Angelica, because he knew very well about my work. He knew I was with EWTN, so he asked about her. But the beautiful thing is, here I am, just the 7 of us in this chapel for morning Mass. I had hoped he would say Mass with it, but I never even implied that I wanted to be at Mass. It didn't dawn on me. Now, the interesting thing is, this has to be a moment in history. 3 hours after Mass with Benedict, I met Pope Francis for the first time. So 2 popes, one day.
What a happy day.
October 19th, 2013.
That's amazing.
Days you don't forget.
There
Exactly.
you go. Well, we
Extraordinary.
have Darlene on the phone. Darlene, welcome to At Home with Jim and Joy. Your question or your comment for Joan?
Hi, Jim and Joy. Hi, Joan.
Hello.
I've always been Catholic. I seems like I should know this, but I don't. Jesus died in Jerusalem and did most of his teachings in the East. How did Rome end up being the center of our church? Is it because St. Peter and St. Paul and so many of the good apostles were martyred there?
Thanks for your question, Darlene. You know, when Joy and I came into the church, it's like we went from Protestantism to Catholicism, and you cease to be an expert. Like she was saying, I should know this, but there's so much we don't know.
Yeah.
Even you might know not know one or two things. So you never have to be ashamed to say we don't know, because it's huge. But your thoughts on that? How did Rome become such a center for
Well, I think she really kind of actually hit upon it in her own question, and it would be obviously the presence of Peter and Paul, all the evangelization. How did all of a sudden Vatican city-state, well, of course, it didn't become a city-state till 1929 anyway, but how did that become the head of the church? There really was, if you think about it, East and West. There was Constantinople, and there was Rome, and we're talking about Christians. Then in 1054, you had the big split. We don't have time for all the history, but we now have Orthodox Christianity in Constantinople, and then we have the Latin Church in Rome. And I think our listeners have to understand there's other rites in the church. The Latin rite is the one most of us know and were brought up in here. But there's the Melkite, the Chaldean, there's 22, I think, other rites to the church, but they're Catholic. Now, the Orthodox Church is Christian, but not Roman or any other Catholic. We still are looking for that unity.
in apostolic
so
succession,
all of a sudden, the growth seemed to come. I think this might be the answer to the question. The growth seemed to come from Rome into that Roman Catholic Church rather than from Constantinople. And the interesting thing that so many people don't know, the difference between the Orthodox and the Catholics. The Orthodox believe that Jesus gave Peter's brother Andrew the mission to lead his church, whereas we Roman Catholics know that Jesus gave Peter the mission to lead his church. So, and that's one of the big differences most people don't know about in the Orthodox and Catholic tradition.
Amazing. Share with us more about the book, and you have a chapter in chapter 9, and if you have time, what does that mean?
Oh my gosh, anybody who is listening to us and has been to Rome know there's 450 or 500 churches. So I concentrate on the 7 pilgrim basilicas, including the 4 papal basilicas, but there's so many other churches that are worthy of an entire hour dedicated to them, or a coffee table book in their history, or the saints that are buried there, and the founders of religious orders. So if you have time, I lay out an itinerary where people can visit a church specifically, starting at a certain point and ending at another. So
How long, time-wise, how long would it take?
that would take a morning, certainly a full day. I would say morning, have a great lunch, little bit of Frascati wine, and then spend the rest of the afternoon on a lot of the other churches. That would be if you didn't spend a lot of time inside the churches.
Right.
Because then you'd need a full day and another morning.
Oh, yeah. Every time we were touring and going, we'd go and you go, I can't. Like, the beauty didn't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, every time you went into another basilica, it was like, it was just more beauty and more beauty. And I mean, I was just taken by the beauty. And the other thing that flipped me was doors. All the doors, even if you were walking down the street. I said, these are doors. These are just doors, but they're magnificent. Of course, when we came back from Rome, I converted to the Catholic Church, but I needed to redecorate.
Yeah.
I needed color, I needed beauty.
Quick, look at my
needed,
pictures of the doors.
It was so, the doors are just fabulous.
You could do a coffee table book on doors.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's just so
Exactly.
beautiful. Well, we have another email. It says, a lot of time when the Pope speaks, his words are twisted or taken out of context. When you were at the Vatican press office, how did you handle those situations? And this is Jonathan from Oklahoma City in Oklahoma.
You're still handling those situations now,
Exactly.
right? EWTN.
Perhaps even more today, I think Pope Francis has this tendency to speak off the cuff, which can be a good thing. But it can also be where he just speaks without any teleprompter or words in front of him. And what he says can be misunderstood. And it's not my duty to ever say, oh, what the Pope really meant was. All we can do if we are asked to comment on something, and this would be up, if it's a big mix-up, that would be up to the head, of course, of the press office, to maybe clarify something. But all we can do is refer back, if it's a question of dogma or teaching, magisterium, we can refer back to what the teaching of the church is on that topic. And as Father Pavone said to me over dinner recently, he says, the Pope doesn't have a book of the Bible that nobody's ever seen. He doesn't have another chapter to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. He knows and has been taught what we have been taught and may have forgotten. So to straighten out those words requires a particular challenge, because we don't want to give our interpretation. We can just go back to what the teaching is on a particular topic and hope that people understood that.
This book, A Holy Year in Rome, we don't want to give people the impression, because the title could, and say, well, the Holy Year in Rome is coming to an end in November, therefore this book isn't very relevant anymore, because Joy just bought your book for friends that are going to Rome, because I wish we had it, because we were wandering into churches, weren't sure what they were, and there's just so much in terms of your preparation to go to Rome, little tips there. I love what you say about restaurants. Speak to us more fully why this is relevant beyond this year.
We had a problem with the title, just from what you said, so that A Holy Year in Rome, okay, in November when it ends on the Feast of Christ the King, this won't have any relevance. This has huge relevance. The only chapter you could really take out and have a wonderful guidebook to Rome might be the birth of this holy year, Pope Francis's announcement, and then the Bull of Indiction, and those documents. But the rest of it's a fabulous guidebook.
Well, the history is the history, and that's forever.
Oh, exactly, the history, the churches. I bring you to how many churches altogether, probably 40 or something. Then I've got pictures. I have tips for tourists.
I like that section.
Those are very, very
Because everybody
practical.
who's going over, like when we went for the first time, we said, well, what should we do? And what about our credentials? Do we, what if something happens? What about crime? How do I prepare myself? You mentioned embassies.
Yeah.
And we went to our embassy when we were there. And it felt so good to be a part of that embassy and to speak to our representative there. you have a list of things like that that just help
Very,
you.
very practical thing. If you, I did only embassies from English-speaking countries. So the embassy of the U.S., obviously, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so forth. If people need passport problems, et cetera. Because if they're French-speaking, they're going to go elsewhere. They may not be reading this, but maybe they will, you know.
When we got off the plane, he said to me, I said, but I don't know so much Italian. He said, of course he had his dictionary, no one was going to trick him.
Yeah.
He said, you only need to know one thing to say. I said, what? What do I need to know? He goes, quanto costa?
Yeah, how much does it
said,
cost?
that's what you need to know. So I would
You have to say that everything you do.
Quanto costa. Well, we're going to go straight to Robin, who's from New Jersey on the phone. Robin, welcome to At Home with Jim and Joy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I wonder when I watch the papal audience how they handle security because there are just so many people, and I just wonder how do people have to go through metal detectors to get into St. Peter's Square? It's a little worrisome sometimes. God willing, nothing's ever happened, but that's just my question.
Thank you.
People don't have to go through lie detectors. If they're lying, they need to go to confession. That's what they're
Yeah,
doing
right.
with that.
But
The metal
actually,
detectors.
right, and now, if you're looking at the two arms, the colonnades
Yeah, it's
of St. Peter's, both sides have, each side has, I think, 12 or so of the airport security type thing. And whereas maybe a few years ago, you kind of thought, well, are they really checking? I want to tell you, they really are now. The people looking at what you wear,
your
what
bags,
what's in your bag, they're very much as like TSA agents. They really catch everything. So under the colonnades on both sides, you have the security. Now, the right hand, if I'm the basilica, the right hand colonnade has all the security for the Jubilee, for the people who've signed up to go through the Holy Door.
Right.
So you follow a particular course down Via della Conciliazione, and then volunteers greet you. And the volunteers, folks, by the way, are dressed in yellow jackets that say volunteers, because there's other people wearing like lime green colored jackets that say staff that have nothing to do with the Vatican, but people get fooled into thinking they do. Anyway, so the volunteers greet you, they show you to the security, and in addition to those machines, there are all kinds of agents, folks. You will see Swiss guards at an audience. Of course, they're in their uniform. Some aren't.
Yeah.
And then the Vatican gendarmes are all over the place, and a lot of them are in plain clothes.
Just undercover.
Most of those will be
Yeah.
in plain clothes, right. You can have somebody in the square, and they've had this for years. You could have somebody in the square you might think is a local homeless man, and he might be the top sharpshooter of the gendarmes or something. So there's security all over the place. And I know that there is security on the rooftops of Vatican buildings when they have an event on Sundays or Wednesdays, too. So it's there.
It's there.
We're having a delightful conversation with Joan Lewis. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More of Joan. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you're an important part of our EWTN family, and you could join us live right here on At Home, and you could be a member of our studio audience. You could have met Joan today. You didn't have to go to Rome to meet her. You could have came to Birmingham. All you need to do is contact the EWTN Pilgrimage Department, or by emailing them at pilgrimages@EWTN, or give them a jingle, 205-271-2966, and they will work out all those details for you. Well, it has been our delight and privilege. We usually now say at this point, we're going to go straight to Rome to hear from Joan, but Joan's here on At Home. And Joan, I want you to tell us a little personal story that you had with Pope John Paul.
As a matter of fact, as we mentioned before the show, my next book is entitled, I Made Cookies for a Saint, because I used to make chocolate chip cookies
That's
for John
incredible.
Paul. And that was not known by anybody except the Pope, his secretary, and the nuns, and myself, until his beatification in 2011. I didn't do it to be known for that. And so I found out one day early in his papacy he liked chocolate. And I thought, I bet he'd like brownies and chocolate chip cookies. So I made 2 dozen brownies, 4 dozen chocolate chip for the whole household, and called his secretary, now Cardinal Živitz. I said, I had something for the Holy Father, maybe you would like to. And can you come tonight at 5:30? Wow. So I came and left my little gift and did that on many occasions. And I always got a phone call or a message from Monsignor Stanislaw.
That's incredible.
So I made cookies for a saint.
That is so amazing.
Tell us the title of the book again.
I made cookies for a saint.
Isn't that awesome?
Because I did, and he's a saint.
Well, wait
So-
a minute, but do you put the recipe in the book? Is that your plan? Or is it going to be a secret?
Well, I guess I should. Yeah, right, exactly.
So what are you thinking about regarding content, or what's going to be kind of some of the themes?
Oh,
in it?
what I'm focusing on. These are my stories, how I met the Pope. I met John Paul on like 16 or 17 occasions. And as member of a delegation in many other ways. But it's contributions from people who also met or worked for him. I'm focusing on John Paul's humor and his humanity.
Oh, it's gonna
so
be
ambassadors,
beautiful.
cardinals, bishops, lay people, anybody who had an interaction with John Paul and has a wonderful story to tell. That's what's going to go in the book.
Great.
You know.
It's going to be a great book.
Oh, he had a great sense of humor
Yes.
too.
You
He
just
really
have about
did.
a minute left. Just kind of your perspective, world view. What gives you hope? I mean, it seems like the wheat and the tares are growing up together. There's such darkness, there's such light. How do you see things?
We always
In a
have-
minute.
yeah, right. No, we always have to have hope. And you know, one of my big reasons for hope, certainly in the church, is people that I meet who share everything we talk about on this show, everything that we are, everything EWTN is. I also have great joy and hope in the priests that I know, the seminarians I meet at the North American College in Rome. The church is blessed beyond telling. The young men that are studying today or were ordained even a few months ago, and they're going to go out there and be our pastors, are very special, wonderful people. God's choicest, for sure.
Joan, thank you
exciting.
so much just for
Hi,
your life
Joan.
and all you're doing to build up the bride of Christ. And we bless your lives. We give thanks for you. Remember that God has a good plan for your life. You're part of the family. God bless you. Bye now.
I think